Good evening. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live stream video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to view the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca, and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, that is 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on the screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conference. You will be asked for your name and number and address that you wish to address. When the chair of the committee polls for interested parties, the Secretary-Treasurer will unmute you, and this will be the time for you to speak. The applicant or agent will then be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of the application, answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for the presentation. You will need to state your name and address for the record. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record, and 5 minutes will be provided for each presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair, and any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to any comments made by interested parties and answer any questions for the committee members. If the applicant or agent has any concerns found in staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark all end of discussions. Any person desiring a notice of the decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email to the Secretary-Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the Ontario Land Tribunal for the giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consents to the applicant and or agent and any other person who filed a written request for such a notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the last date to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal has been received within the prescribed timeframe, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then be notified, all the applicants and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight, electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have one regret this evening, Ms. Murray. Do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? Okay, Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On application CAV 012-2022, I have a conflict.
012, you said, right?
Yes, 012.
At 483 Brookside Drive.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other declarations? Okay, I see none. Ms. Secretary-Treasurer, we have requests of deferral this evening. If there's anyone in the audience who is requesting withdrawal or a deferral of their application, please raise your hand and the Secretary-Treasurer will unmute you and allow you to speak.
Madam Chair, there is Mr. Lucas Cornello. He's gonna request deferral.
Okay. I do not see him on the panel yet.
Hi, this is Lucas Cocomello. Do you guys hear me?
We can hear you. If you can turn your camera on, then that would be appreciated.
No problem. Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Cocomello, which application are you here for?
I'm here for application number A/016/2022-228
Okay.
Mohawk Road.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So we're here requesting deferral of the application to a later hearing date. We have been in contact with Catherine Buckerfield, the planner assigned to the project, and she has expressed some concerns with the variance that we're requesting. So it was recommended that we would defer the application to a later hearing date to further discuss revising the application to something that's more reasonable with planning and community adjustment.
Very well, thank you. Members, all those in favor of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Outred, I assume you're here for application CV 017?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm just going through the connection. I lost it there for a moment. Yes, I am there for the application. That's 54 Jamota. My address is at 2140 Weston Park, Oakville, Ontario. We'd like to request a deferral just to have another crack at dealing with planning to obtain satisfactory comments. So we're anticipating doing another slight reduction to the RFA, then coming back as soon as possible.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for your submission. Members, all those in support of a deferral? Okay, the application has been deferred. Thank you, Mr. Outred. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too. Any
other deferrals, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There is no any other request at this time.
Okay, very well. We have no consent applications. Our first matter for this evening is CAV A010 of 2022 at 72 Chancery Lane East. Again, it's CAV 010 at 72 Chancery Lane East. If anyone would like to speak to this matter, please call 905-815-6095. And staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing.
Turn off the camera on the Zoom call?
No, it's fine.
Because it messes up the video.
This one?
No, don't do that because it causes issues for the audio because that's the host.
Okay.
Sorry, we are having a bit of technical difficulties this evening, so just bear with us.
Should I do something or no?
Did you turn it off or did it just glitch itself?
I didn't do
You
anything.
didn't do anything?
No.
Yeah. Okay, well,
Miss
Okay.
Secretary, I don't know if you want to mute yourself until the technical team takes care of it.
I think you can go on now.
Okay, so we're okay to proceed?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Mr. Rabinski, am I pronouncing that right?
Close enough.
Go ahead and correct me. I'm happy to get it
No,
right.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jersey Rabianski. I will be representing.
Do you have two apparatuses on or
Let me turn the other one off.
yeah.
Okay. I'll be representing the owner of 72 Chancery Lane East. Does the committee have any questions? I think it's a pretty simple application. I'm not sure if everyone's got a chance to.
No, we have, but because this meeting is virtual and online, we like for everyone to be aware of the application. Did you submit a presentation? If not, we have your drawings that staff can put up, and you can take a couple of minutes to just take us through it, just for the audience and for the members of the public.
Okay, so what we're doing on this application is we're rebuilding if you go up the page on the site plan, there is that rear shed, which is sort of a pool house and accessory structure. So we're proposing to take down the existing structure and add on to the gray section. If you look to the right of it, it's hashed in. So it's just the structure at the rear of the property that we are getting the variance for. So currently the existing house and this existing shed already are over the lot coverage allowed. We are asking in terms of, so we are going from the existing, I think it's the allowable is 264.31 meters squared, and we are asking for 304.94 meters squared. This is in the rear yard, so it doesn't have anything to do with massing of the front house. This is all in regards to the rear of the property. So that's pretty much the gist of it. There isn't really too much. In terms of the height, we did our best to minimize the height, foreshadowing of the adjacent neighbor. They didn't express any concerns. I know that there isn't a letter for the application, but there is no letter against it as well. So I think this application is good, and we don't see any negative impacts on the neighborhood or the adjacent property.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Rabinski. Are there any questions of the applicant at this time, or any items of clarification? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you please confirm for me, did you indicate that the existing structure would be demolished and then replaced and enlarged?
Yeah, so the existing footprint is pretty much staying the same. We are just extending a portion of it into the backyard, going towards the house. So the existing structure, unfortunately, well, some of it is actually staying as is. So there is some grading issues there, and we are keeping the slab and most of the plumbing and all that, all the utilities that are in there currently. We are just extending, I think, by about 15 feet towards. So it's still a pretty small structure. We still fall within the 5% lot coverage for accessory structure in the rear yard. This just came into play that the house, is over already in itself, and I think this bylaw with the suffix X or suffix O was introduced after the house was built. So this is sort of a condition that's already, on this site already. We are, asking for a little bit more, but being in the rear yard, we thought it was reasonable, as it doesn't really affect the streetscape or, negatively impact the adjacent neighbor, being it is such a low structure. I think it's only 11 feet in height, where the maximum allowed is 14, I believe.
And that's actually where I was going to ask the question in terms of the replacement of the existing components with new elements. Will the height of the building be changing in any way from what's existing today?
I believe that the height is actually going to be decreased. The height right now, I think, is about 12 feet, and we're just over 11. If that's correct, but in terms of the height, it's not getting increased from what it was existing.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Are there any members in attendance who would like to speak to this application? Please raise your hand and you'll be invited into the panel to speak. If not, we can take the matter into committee. Is there anyone, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
There is no one at this time. I don't see anybody.
Okay, very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, and having heard the comments from the agent for the owner, I am satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the four tests of the Act, and I'll put forward a motion of approval, noting that the extension to the shed and the reconstruction will have no negative impact upon adjacent properties, including those to the rear. I would make the motion subject to two general conditions, those being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated December 8th, 2021, and elevation drawings dated October 4th, 2021, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. I would note that there were no members of the public present with respect to this matter, and there were no letters received with respect to this matter.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you and have a good night.
Okay, thank you.
Next item on our agenda is CAV 011 of 2022 at 182 Wayburn Road. Again, it's CAV 011 of 2022 at 182 Wayburn Road. If anyone is interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095 and you will be directed to join the video conferencing at that time. Okay.
Good.
Good evening, Mr. Kieran. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Good evening, members of the committee, Madam Chairperson. I'm the agent for the applicant. My name is Joris Kieran, 111 Bronte Road, Unit 31. And I can jump right into a brief presentation if that's okay.
Yes, go ahead.
This application is seeking 3 variances. And the first variance has to do with the rear yard setback, and it ties into the third variance also, which is front yard setback. So the nature of quite a few of these properties that are along this side of the street is that they're set back quite far, and the front yards are a little bit bigger than what you would expect for lots of this size. So typically we would see a front yard setback of 8 or 9 meters. In this case, it's like 12 meters. So that has the effect of pushing everything back and making it a little bit difficult to fit, fit a typical footprint on there. That's why we have a little bit of a projection out the back, penetration through the rear yard setback, and also a little bit popping out the front. Although at the front, it's very minimal, as you can see. It's only maybe 1.5 feet So that is the main reason for those setback variance requests. That's variance number 1 and 3.
Okay.
And if we go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
And I should just to wrap up the point on the setback. So also, as you can see from the site plan, it basically aligns with the houses more or less the way they are now. And there's also a new house being built to the south, so it's more or less going to be in line with houses on each side. Slide 2 talks a little bit about, or speaks a little bit to the RFA variance, which is variance number 2. Looking for a little increase in the RFA. And I usually like to just show where that's occurring. So we have a pantry servery that wanted to be part of this design that's adding a little bit of square footage. The den, not in its entirety, but the den is a little bit deeper than a typical den would be. So we have a couple square meters there that are contributing to the overage. If you go to slide 3, please. Then the client did want to have a second floor laundry room. And that increased the overall RFA as well. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Very well. Thank you. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Kieran at this time? Are there members in the attendees that would like to speak to this application?
There is no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. Thank you very much. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the application and the submission, noting that the town is in support of the application, as well as noting that there were no people from the public speaking against the application in tonight's presentation, or no written letters in protest of the application. I would like to find that it's minor in nature and meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and don't see any negative impacts by the variances requested, and thank the applicant's agent for illustrating on the floor plans the area with regards to variance number 2. So I would like to move the motion that the application be approved as applied for, with the following 2 conditions: that the dwelling be built in a general accordance with the submitted site plan dated November 19th, 2021, and elevation drawings dated October 29th, 2021. And our second condition, the standard one, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Kieran. Good night. Next on our agenda is a CAV 0112 of 2022 at 483 Brookside Drive. Again, it's application CAV 012 of 2022 at 483 Brookside Drive. If you're interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Maham Siddiqui from Sajaki Planning, and I'm representing the property owners of 483 Brookside Drive. I do have a presentation ready if you'd like me to go through it.
Go ahead, Ms. Siddiqui. Thank you.
Could I go to the next slide, please? The subject property is located in Ward 2 on the north side of Brookside Drive. It's west of Ashbury Road, east of Burton Road, and south of Trillium Drive. The site currently has a residential dwelling, a one-story residential dwelling that has a floor area of approximately 194 square meters. It is designated low-density residential in the town's official plan and zoned RL3-0 in the zoning bylaw. The property is subject of a building permit application, which is how the variances subject of this application were identified. Next slide, please. This shows the proposed site plan of the development, and the lot area is approximately 256 square meters, resulting in a lot coverage of 36.75. Next slide, please. I would like to just note an error on my slide for the proposed minor variances. The first minor variance, we're requesting an increased lot coverage of 36.75, which is what is reflected in the public notice and was confirmed by the zoning examiner. I would just like to note that correction. So we're requesting minor variances for an increased lot coverage of 36.75, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum lot coverage of 35%. The second variance is to permit a maximum RFA to lot area ratio of 43.57%, whereas the bylaw permits 41%. The third variance is to permit 3 window wells to encroach 0.81 meters into a required side yard, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum encroachment of 0.6 meters, provided the window well does not increase. Sorry, is there a question?
No, I think we've been having some technical difficulties this evening, so I think someone interrupted you inadvertently. We apologize for that.
It's no problem. So it's provided that the window well does not exceed the maximum width of 1.8 meters, and all 3 of the window wells do exceed that maximum width. The fourth is to permit the proposed attached garage to project 2.31 meters, whereas the bylaw permits a projection of 1.5 meters. And the last variance is to permit an increased garage area of 51 meters, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum of 45 square meters. Next slide, please. So we believe that the proposed variances meet the 4 tests. The first being that the general intent and purpose of the official plan is maintained. The requested variances are minor elements of the proposed residential dwelling and are consistent with the official plan. Section 11.1.9 of the town's official plan addresses development within stable residential communities and requires a built form that's compatible with the neighborhood. And we believe the proposed development is consistent with other recently approved developments within the neighborhood, which I'll highlight in the next few slides. Next slide, please. The second test that the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw is maintained is also satisfied. These variances are inconsequential to the overall intent of the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. The variances are also minor in nature. This table shows difference in what is permitted in the zoning bylaw and what we are proposing. So for the first, the lot coverage results in a difference of just 1.75%, which comes down to approximately 12 square meters. The second results in a difference of 2.57%, which results in a difference of 17.9 square meters. For the third variance for the window wells, they encroach by an extra 0.21 meters in what is permitted in zoning bylaw. For the fourth variance, the garage projects an extra 0.81 meters in what is permitted in the bylaw. And the garage area for the last variance exceeds by just 6 square meters. Next slide, please. The minor modifications that are subject to this application don't have any adverse impacts on the adjacent properties and are consistent with recent developments in the area. The variance for the increased floor area will allow the property owners to have space to work on their music. They have a music production company, and that space will be completely soundproof to mitigate any adverse impacts. Next slide, please. So this shows some of the recently approved applications to the Committee of Adjustment for increased RFA, ranging between 43.8% to 45.33%. Other new developments in the area also were approved for an increased garage floor area and projection. And we understand that each application is considered on an individual and site-specific basis, but these applications just show that the minor variances that we're requesting are consistent with the general built form of new developments in the area and its character. Next slide, please. We received these two support letters from the neighbors immediately adjacent to the property owners. And so we respectfully request that the variances be approved, as we believe that the requested variances meet the 4 tests. The application is supported by staff comments and by support letters from these neighbors, and no concerns have been raised to our knowledge. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone in the audience who's raised their hand that would like to speak to this matter?
There is no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm going to move this application be approved as applied for. It's a fair number of variances, but I believe individually and collectively, they are all minor. And with the assistance of the applicant's excellent 3D drawings, I can easily conclude that I do not believe there will be an impact from these variances. So again, I'm going to move approval subject to the dwelling being built in general accordance with the site plan dated September 15th, 21, elevation drawings dated July 27th, 21, and that a building permit issues within 2 years. And I'd also like to note that the applicant had 2 letters of support from the community.
Okay, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay. We've lost Mr. Flemington. Is he still online? Do you see him on your end? 'Cause I don't.
Madam Chair, he was removed because he had a conflict with this application. So I had to put him on hold, and now I'm going to promote him to for another application.
Yeah, I wrote the note in the front of my notes, but I forgot to write it next to the application. So I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
Okay, so the motion was to approve, and it has passed with no opposition. Your application has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Oh, okay, we've got Mr. Flemington now. Very well. The next item on our agenda is application CAV 013 of 2022 at 1110 Lakeshore Road West. Again, it's CAV 013 of 2022 at 1110 Lakeshore Road West. Who's the agent for this application? I have Cynthia Gibson.
Yeah, she's online.
Yes, how do I? I'm here. Can you hear me?
If we can hear you, it'd be nice if you can turn your camera on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where that is. I'm sorry, I can't locate it. I'm taking over for Mr. Hicks tonight because he's out of the country and his internet has just failed. So,
Okay, that's fine. If you're having technical difficulties, at least we can hear you. So you can go ahead. Do you have a presentation for us this evening?
yes. My name is Cynthia Gibson. I'm with Hicks Design Studio in Oakville. We are here to present our minor variance application for 1110 Lakeshore Avenue West. Could you go to the next slide, Jasmina, please? This proposal is a little unique in that it's a heritage property or building, and the owners wanted to make some alterations and changes to it. And as a result of that, lots of discussion was had between Heritage and the owners. And the best way that they found that they could manage these changes and additions and alterations was to actually relocate the house on the property by moving it closer to Lakeshore Road so that the front door would face north rather than east. So as a result of that, we need a few minor variances. If you could go to the next slide, Jasmina, please. So we were requesting 4 variances, one for driveway width, the second one for garage area, the third one for the minimum front yard, and the last one for the interior side yard. Now you'll notice that we've crossed out the first variance, and we would like to remove it from this application if possible, and proceed with the other 3. So the garage, basically, we're looking to increase the garage in size, really more for storage than anything else. The owner has a drive lawnmower and would like to have some extra storage in the garage. The front yard setback, we've had to reduce to 8.46 meters. Simply because of how the house is sited now on the property. And we had to sort of center it properly, and being that it's an angled lot, this was the only way that we could really do it. So we're requesting the minimum front yard variance as well. And the last variance that we request is for the interior side yard. And essentially that's for a window well encroachment. I think the encroachment is 3.53 meters, whereas the setback is to be 4.2 meters. The owner went around to the neighborhood and spoke to their neighbors, and everybody's in support of the application. We do have one letter of support that we submitted to the committee, and Heritage is fully in support of this application. And planning is to, except for the first variance, which we are happy to remove from this application.
Okay. Are there any questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Is there anyone standing, waiting, I guess, online, trying to speak to this application?
Madam Chair, there is no one at this time. However, if you can repeat again that everyone who wants to speak, they need to raise their hands.
Yes, if there's anyone in attendance who would like to speak to CAV 013 of 2022 at 1110 Lakeshore Road West, please raise your hand and you will be invited to the panel to address the committee.
There is no one.
Okay, very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit and reviewed the written materials, including the staff report, and heard the presentation, which included a revision to the application to delete the first variance with respect to maximum driveway width, I am satisfied that the revised application and modified variances, including variances 2, 3, and 4, satisfy the 4 tests of the act, and I'll put forward a motion of approval. And the motion should be subject to 2 conditions, those being that the relocation, addition, and alteration be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated December 14th, 21, and elevation drawings dated November 1st, 21, subject to the removal of the hammerhead portion of the driveway shown on the site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. I would note that there was 1 letter of support provided in support of this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
You too.
Application CAV 014 of 2022 at 2082 Bridge Road. Again, it's application CAV 014 of 2022 at 2082. That's 2082 Bridge Road. If there's anyone interested in speaking to this application, please call 905-815-6095, and staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions. Good evening, Mr. Capper.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for having me this evening. For the record, my name is David Capper with Glenn Schnarr Associates, and our mailing address is 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Suite 700, Mississauga, Ontario, L5R3K6. And I'm here this evening to speak to CAV 014 2022. I have prepared a presentation for you this evening. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to walk through the presentation very quickly. Jasmine, if I could please have the next slide. Madam Chair, the property at 2082 Bridge Road is shown on the aerial photo in front of you. The subject property is highlighted in red. It's on the southeast side of Bridge Road, just to the east of Scarsdale Crescent. If I could have the next slide, please. Madam Chair, there's a single variance before you this evening that seeks an increase in the maximum permissible residential floor area. And the variance is seeking an increase from 41%, which is permitted under the zoning bylaw, to 43.03%, or a 2.03% increase. And in terms of floor area, that will result in an additional 14.7 square meters, or just over 158 square feet of additional floor area that's being sought this evening. If I could get the next slide, please. Very quickly, Madam Chair, this is the site plan for the proposed dwelling. I do note it's a 2-story dwelling. And I'd like to just point out in the staff comments, there was commentary with respect to the submission not complying with the front yard setback. and the depth of the window wells that are shown. Madam Chair, this site plan on the screen right now illustrates full compliance with those two provisions. So at building permit submission, we will revise to comply with the front yard setback, as well as the window well depths here. And just by reference, the side yard setback has been revised to reflect 12.1 meters, which is the required front yard setback. And then the window wells, these 3 window wells here, have been reduced to reflect the maximum of 0.6 meters. So those 2 matters are not affected by the variance for an increase in RFA. And as I mentioned, we will comply with those provisions under the as of right provisions in the zoning bylaw at building permit submissions. I do ask that the committee consider that as part of our submission if they are imposing a condition with respect to the drawings and the approval of the drawings that were submitted. If I could get the next slide, please. Site statistics for the property, noting the increase in RFA in number 9. And if I could get the next slide. Sorry, that's the slide I'm looking for. This is the front elevation of the property. And then the next slide is the rear elevation. And then the last 2 slides are the 2 east and west side yard elevations. And I believe that concludes my presentation for this evening. I do note that that in fact there was an error in the slide that was used for the site statistics, in that it had the wrong RFA percentage. That is an error on our part when we're preparing the presentation. The variance before you this evening is in fact 43.03%.
Okay. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Capper at this time? Mr. Hardcastle.
Mr. Capper, just to confirm, or perhaps Ms. Buckerfield, that site plan that you presented in your presentation is or has been provided to staff, and they have reviewed it?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, it has. The error was actually caught by staff, and we were asked to revise it in advance of coming to this evening's committee to illustrate compliance. We have provided, certainly I don't mean to speak for her, I apologize for that, but we did provide it to the town. I believe Ms. Buckerfield has reviewed it with zoning staff, but I'll certainly let her confirm
that. Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we were in speaking with the applicant, and through internal discussions, we determined that the changes that would be on these plans to accommodate this would result in a dwelling, would be within the general accordance of the submitted site plan that's before you. So that's kind of what we were taking a look at. The change is not significant in order to comply. So that's where we provided that recommendation that the dwelling still be in general accordance with the submitted site plan, and they'll have the opportunity to comply with the zoning bylaw by the time of building permit.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. Are there any other questions? Okay, I see none. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this matter that is waiting, whether they're online?
There is no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move the application be approved as applied for. I think it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I don't see any impact of the variance. I'd also note there was no objection from the community. Madam Chair, seeing that the applicant showed us a drawing that was different than the one that we have in our package, I'm going to move that the application be subject to being built in general accordance with the site plan and elevations to the satisfaction of Director of Planning. Just prefer that than to go down the general accordance route. Now that we've seen a plan that does comply, they could hopefully just replace that to the director's satisfaction and that a building permit issues within 2 years.
Sure. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a good night. Okay, application CAV 015 of 2022 at 335 Allen Street. Again, application CAV 015 of 2022 at 335 Allen Street. If there's anyone who'd like to speak to this application, please call 905-815-6095 and staff will direct your call to join the video conference. Go ahead, Mr. Galvez.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Sergio Galvez. I'm the designer and the agent acting on the client's behalf. Office is at in Oakville, 2030 Bristol Circle, Suite 210. The client on this project simply wants a nice little sunroom-like addition. He currently has about a similar sized deck, open deck, that's about 12 feet by 16 feet. And so he thought, why can't it be covered and maybe get a couple more seasons out of it throughout the year? So this addition is proposed, the part that you see all in white. That actual sunroom is 12 feet by 16 feet. If you can go to slide 2, please. That's just one perspective. And then there's the other side. So they have a pool to the backyard. The idea is just simply to enjoy this space a little more. So currently the lot coverage allowed is 25%. In order to achieve this little sunroom, we would have to go to 28.3%. So we're looking for a 3.3% increase in lot coverage. If you can go to slide 3, please. So you see that little box, the 12 feet by 16 feet attached to the house. Again, that is about 192 square feet is what we're looking for. It's only the one variance we need. Again, it's to increase in lot coverage by 3.3%. And that's all I really have to say.
Very well, thank you. Are there any questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Is there anyone who is in attendance who would like to speak to this application, CAV 015 of 2022 at 335 Allen Street?
Yes.
I would.
Yes, Madam
You
Chair.
have someone?
There's Ms.
Yes.
Gill.
I'm sorry,
here.
you're breaking out. I can't hear you.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Who do we have with us online? I don't see.
Let's see. I'm
Okay,
unmute.
Unmute yourself, and if you can turn your camera on, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, I'm
Ms.
unmuted.
Gail Sherrington?
Yes, but
Okay,
I don't
go
have a
ahead.
camera. Okay.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, my concern is my house is right next door and my bedroom windows face that, and I'm concerned about privacy and lighting. I don't know if there'll be windows on that south side of the addition, and if there'll be lighting that comes into my bedroom. I'm just concerned about privacy and lighting.
Okay,
but I don't know.
Mr. Galvez can address your concern. Is that the only concern that you have? Because once I turn it over to him, the matter will go then into committee. So if that's all you have to share with us, I'm happy to direct him to.
Just that I am very concerned about privacy issue and the lighting, and how it will affect any daylight too. I just need to know if there are windows on the south side of that addition that would directly face into my bedrooms.
Okay, thank you for your submission.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Mr. Alves.
So the sunroom is about 12 by 16 feet, and it's about 16 feet from the south property line. So if you're to the south of this property, you're about 16 feet from, we're about 16 feet from the fence, and then you're about 5 or so feet from that fence. The structure, I don't know if we can show again the slide, but
Yes,
is
we
no
can.
taller than the existing house. And it is set back 1 foot north. So
Oh, okay.
if we could just see slide number 2 or that one right there. So
Yeah,
it's
you've got
basically
windows. You have windows on the south side. And it's those windows that and the lighting that will bother my bedroom window. That will bother my bedroom.
yeah, okay, so yeah, so the extension is 12 feet. It's set back 12 inches from the existing house, and the structure is not tall. It's only 1 story.
It's not the problem. It will be the lighting. It'll be the lighting from those windows on the south side.
I don't know how to comment on what lighting effects could have.
As long
to
as they
your house.
don't do outside lighting around the windows, if the lighting is inside and doesn't reflect into my bedroom. Because it's close.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I don't mind the windows on the east side of it, but those windows on the south side will be directly showing light into my bedroom.
I don't know how we can address that.
Maybe if you don't know outside lighting there. As long as, yeah, do something with those windows.
So hold on. I think this conversation is going back and forth in a way that we don't usually do. Let me just take a minute to clarify something. Mr. Alves, what is the purpose of the extension? What is that going to be used for? Can you just comment on that?
Again, they currently have an outdoor deck, the same level. The house has a living room to the backside. They currently use it as a deck, but now they're thinking, why not have a covered space? And
so it'll be almost like a living room space.
I mean, I don't know if it's a living room. It's just an outdoor, like to be able to use it during the rainy seasons, you know,
and during
the fall.
Okay, so you've just enclosed it. Excuse me, Ms. Carrington. So you've just enclosed what potentially was an outdoor deck previously.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So on that note, there are no other variances that we are dealing with. There's no encroachment in the rear yard or to the side yard. So you are within your limits except on lot coverage, correct?
Right.
Okay. So in that case, Ms. Harrington, we're more than happy to let you speak to Mr. Galvez privately and see if the owners or applicant may want to work something out within your comfort. But in terms of an application that is before us, we are here to look at the covered extension and the lot coverage issues. We have no bearing on whether there can be lights outside or there aren't. We have no bearing on the materials that they use. We have no bearing on any of those items, okay, as a committee. So I don't think that this is the venue where we can discuss this right now.
I just thought it was worth an opportunity to bring this up.
Oh, no, absolutely. And you did, and your submission is respected and appreciated. It's just that we can't, comment on this at this present time, but Mr. Galvez can do his best in terms of accommodating you with the application.
Thank you. That would be helpful. Thank
Mr.
you.
Galvez, are there lights right now in the backyard, on the deck?
There's a wall sconce or a wall light to either the left or the right side of the current patio door.
There's nothing that interferes with the light in my bedroom right now.
Okay, well, we'll leave this to you. I'm sure the neighbors would like to make the living space as accommodating as possible to their neighbors. But for now, if there are no further comments or questions from the members of the committee, we can take the matter into committee. Are there any items of clarification or questions or matter of discussion? Okay, I see none. Who would like to move a motion? Okay, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town staff report, noting that they are in support of the motion, as well as taking into account the presentation this evening, illustrating that the design of the addition, as far as how it is built onto the building, is in the manner that does not have an impact from a negative basis. Noting that the neighbor, Mrs. Harrington, address some concerns with regards to the impact of lighting. I'm just noting that the applicant may want to speak to, or the applicant's agent may want to follow up with them with regards to that. But I don't see this having a huge negative impact on the neighbor. So I would like to move a motion finding that it is minor in nature and meeting the four tests of the Planning Act, that the application be approved as applied for, with the following two conditions. One, that the addition be built, excuse me, in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated 13/12/2021, and two, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your time.
Mr. Galvez, you can reach out to Ms. Sherrington in as the neighbor once we're done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening, Ms. Sherrington.
Thank you. Now, how do I get out of this? Maybe? No?
Just mute yourself or leave the actual meeting. There's a button on the corner that says leave, it's red. Okay. I'm a little confused. I've got Mr. Kieran in front of me, but we're supposed to be on CAV 018, correct?
Correct. I'm just promoting Mr.
Yeah, sorry, that's my mistake. I'll see you after this one.
Okay. Okay. We are dealing with CAV 018 of 2022 at 176 Wayburn Road. Again, it's CAV 018 of 2022 at 176 Wayburn Road. Good evening, Mr. Van Kulen.
Good evening.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Curtis Van Kulen of Hughes Design Studio. My address is 18 Conestoga Drive, Unit 301, Brampton, Ontario. I'm here before you in support of 176 Wayburn Road, CAV 018. I do have a small presentation I can go through. We are requesting one variance for RFA of the dwelling, which is 42%, whereas 42.94%, whereas the bylaw permits 41%, which equates to approximately 13.5 square meters. If you would turn to page 6 of the drawing package, I'd like to draw attention to some of the 3D sketch renderings that we've prepared. We believe our design is compatible with the built form of the newer builds in the area, and there are 2 larger new builds directly across the street, as well as a new application on the neighboring lot, which you saw earlier this evening to the north. We have taken great care to work with town staff and design the house specifically to mitigate the impact of on the surrounding lots. We'd like to specifically note that the second floor of the front elevation, as well as the north side of the house, has been slightly depressed or pushed back. This is to create additional negative space and soften the overall massing of the house towards the street. We've also pushed back the second floor facade over the garage, which even further helps to again soften the massing of the home. On the rear of the dwelling, there is a 2-story great room space, and we have depressed the roof of this space to again further soften the massing towards the rear yard of the property. We'd like to note that we've received 3 letters of support from the neighbors in the area. And again, we'd like to thank town staff for their support and assistance towards reaching a compatible design in keeping with the town's urban design guidelines. We do find our application meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. We have also read staff comments and have no concerns with the conditions noted. I welcome any questions from the committee at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kulen. Are there any items of clarification or questions at this time? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the agent. It indicates in the staff comments that with respect to the shed, what are your intentions with respect to the retention of the shed, and how would you be dealing with that in the future?
Yep, through you, Madam Chair, member of the committee, the shed has already been removed. It was part of the demolition application. It was on the original survey and therefore made it onto the site plan, but the shed has already been removed and it will not be reconstructed. So the lot coverage issue should not be a problem in the future. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, is there anyone waiting to be admitted to speak to this application?
There is no one at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, very well. Let's take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit and having reviewed the written materials, including the written staff report, and having heard the presentation from the agent, including his responses, I'm satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the 4 tests of the Act, and I'll put forward a motion of approval subject to 2 conditions, those being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and elevation drawings dated December 13th, 2021, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Would note that there were 3 letters of support submitted with respect to this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, Application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Okay, we're at application CV 019 of 2022 at 1395 Willow Down Road. Again, it's application CV 019 2022 at 1395 Willow Down Road. That's Mr. Kieran. Hello, Mr. Kieran.
Hello. Good evening again, members of the committee, Madam Chairperson. This application before you is for 2 variances. Both variances are supported by planning staff. Just want to note that. And a few days ago, I was copied on a letter of objection or a letter of opposition from one of the neighbors. So through my presentation, I'm going to just touch on and address some of the points in that letter at the same time. This neighbor is located behind this property, slightly to the right. Variance 1, as indicated on slide 1, variance, which is the lot coverage. Okay, so pretty much the entirety of the lot coverage overage is associated or attributable to this rear covered porch, which is a 1-story structure. The dwelling itself complies if you were to take that out of the equation. Now, the comment from the neighbor about the setback, her first, sorry, I'm not sure if it came from exactly, but the first comment in this letter had to do with a concern related to the proximity of the proposed dwelling to the rear yard and properties in the back, et cetera, and just the general increase in size of the dwelling. And although it is an increase over what's there now, I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention that we are actually well within the rear yard setback, as you can see from the site plan. Not so much this one, but the one that's in your package. We're about 20 meters, 17 meters to the porch, and then to the dwelling itself would be about 20 meters. So I just wanted to point that out, that we are not seeking a variance for rear yard setback, and that we're actually quite a ways away from that setback. We also comply with the side and front yard setbacks. The second point in the letter was a concern about drainage and how potentially the increased dwelling size may impact negatively the drainage of the property. And there's a little, they're calling it a creek in the letter. I think it's more of a ditch. I don't think it's an actual creek, but I'm not entirely certain, but I'm aware that there's a little bit of a drainage run back there. And as we have dealt with this before on other applications, and as the committee is probably aware, these drainage matters are not dealt with through this process and not dealt with by the committee, but rather through development engineering and through the DESP permit process. So that would be my comment on this particular concern, is that it will go through that process. And what I usually like to point out to people who aren't familiar with this process is that the grading through these type of applications often ends up improving, because although we're increasing the coverage, there's so much scrutiny on the grading, and there's so many rules now in place to address any concerns. The grading will probably improve. I can't say for sure, but definitely in order to achieve approval on such a permit, we have to demonstrate that there's no negative impact on neighboring properties from a drainage standpoint. So this person may not be aware of that, but just as a general bit of information. Third point and last point, just to talk about what the letter said, was pertaining to trees. A concern about removal of mature trees in the course of development, this development and general development that they've witnessed in the area. And that certainly is the case at times. However, this application is not really needing any significant trees to be removed. There's a small cedar tree at the front, a 20-centimeter diameter, pretty insignificant, that will need to be removed. But other than that, there are no trees that require to be removed to facilitate this new footprint. So although that is the case on some of our applications, in this one, we're actually not anticipating much of that to be needed. I'll speak to the next variance. If you go to slide 2, please. Thank you. This is just the other variance, which is the garage overage, very small. We're talking approximately 3 square meters. So that is also a small contribution for the lot coverage, but that is one of the other variants, and it's supported, as you know, by staff. And that's the area basically for some additional storage that's accounting for that overage. That concludes my presentation.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Are there any items of clarifications or questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? Mr. Talowski, go ahead, sir.
Madam Chair, Mr. Kieran, you've got 3 porches on this property and I think a relatively modest coverage variance. Is that overage contained all within the porches, or is it the dwelling as well?
Right. So if you maybe want to put the slide up again, I don't know if that's possible. That might be helpful to answer this question. Correct, there are 3 porches on this house. So there'd be slide 1. So there are 3 porches, the front porch, and then there's 2 rear porches, but the other rear porch, the one that's not highlighted, it's not really a covered porch. It just has a perimeter beam around it. So it's not contributing coverage. It's just a uncovered porch. The porch that's boxed in there with the red box, that is the entirety of the overage. It's about 18 square meters. So yes, if it was not for that, if we were to remove that porch, we'd be in compliance. That answers your question.
Any other questions or items of clarification? Okay, I see none. Madam Secretary Treasurer, is there anyone waiting in attendance that would like to speak to application CAV 019 of 2022 at 1395 Willow Down Road?
Madam Chair, there is no one at this time.
Okay, very well. Then we'll take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm going to move this application be approved as applied for, finding it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I find these variances to be very minor in nature, and I don't think they're going to have an impact. I just note from my question to Mr. Kieran that the house itself is actually under coverage. It's the variance is being caused by the porches, and I don't see an impact being caused by that. I would note, as Mr. Kieran alluded to, there is a letter of objection from the neighbor. This letter primarily deals with 2 things. One that are matters of the site plan development engineering process, and the other matter dealing with economics of housing. I'm satisfied, as Mr. Kieran has indicated, that the requirements of the development engineering site plan will require grading that likely doesn't exist today, and that I don't find the addition of an extra porch is going to significantly contribute to the different cost of this housing within Oakville. I would make that approval subject to the dwelling being built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated December 10th, 21, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Tulowski. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Good evening, Mr. Kieran.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, application CAV 183 of 2021 deferred from December the 21st. Again, it's application CAV A 183 2021 deferred from December the 21st at 2369 Delness Drive. If you'd like to speak to this application, please call 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, members of the committee. I'm the agent for 2369 Delness Drive.
Go ahead.
Yes, so this is not the one. Yes, so what we're proposing is a construction of a rear yard sunroom. We are requesting the relief for two variances, the lot coverage and the rear yard setback. If you can go to like the site plan, please. Yes. So the first variance we're requesting is a rear yard setback of 6.12 meters, where the minimum is 7.5 meters. And the second one is for the lot coverage. We're requesting a lot coverage of 41%, where the maximum lot coverage is 40%. I've seen the comments from the planning department, and I believe they are in support of the application. So if you have no further questions for me, I look for your approval.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Elgendi. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time? Okay, I see none. There's no one waiting to speak to this application, Ms. Secretary Treasurer?
There is no one at this time.
Very well. Then we'll take the matter into committee. Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the oral presentation this evening, and noting that the town's written staff report is in support of the motion, or sorry, of the application. I do find that the building of this sunroom will not have a negative impact, and it does meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. So I would like to move a motion to approve the application as applied for. I also want to note that there were no members of the public that were in attendance to speak against the application or letters in opposition of the application. So I'd like to include the following 2 conditions: that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you, Ms. Gendi.
Thank you very much. Good
evening. Application CAV 188 of 2021 at 2008 Hickson Street. Again, it's application CAV A188 of 2021 deferred from December the 21st as 2008 Hickson Street. If there's anyone who'd like to speak to this application, please call 905-815-6095 and staff will be standing by to take your call. Go ahead, Mr. Bruce.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It's actually Joel Tanner from the Office of Simple
Oh.
Design Studio this evening, but I am signed in as Lindsay Bruce. We are going back to a file from December. We are seeking 3 minor variances for 2008 Hickson Street. The first is for an enlarged garage. From the streetscape, it is going to look like a 2-car garage, but it is sized as a 3-car garage. That is the first variance. So we're looking at a variance going from 45 square meters up to 67.2 square meters. Again, not visible from the streetscape. The second variance is for a change to the residential floor area. So the allowable percentage is 35%. We're seeking a very incremental increase to 35.25. And the final request is for a lot coverage change from the allowable of 25% to 28.42%. That is mainly driven off of the front porch canopy and the rear porch canopy, as well as attached cabana. I welcome any questions or concerns the committee has. We don't seem to have any concerns from the neighbors, and we have support from planning staff.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time? Okay, I see none, and if there's no one waiting to speak to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer, we will take the matter into committee.
There is no one at this time.
Thank you. Okay, who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, having reviewed the materials, including the written staff report, the submitted materials, and having heard Mr. Tanner's presentation, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act. And I'll put forward a motion of approval subject to 2 conditions, those being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and elevation drawings dated October 21, 2021, and that the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. And I would note that there were no members of the public present or letters received with respect to this matter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed.
Thanks so much, committee. Have a great evening.
Good evening. Okay, we have minutes to confirm for January the 25th. Who would like to move those? Mr. Flemington, thank you. And then motion to adjourn. Mr. Hardcastle, we are adjourned at 8:38.